Right, so one thing about the professional wrestling business is there are a lot of fragile egos. Many wrestlers and people involved in wrestling with fragile personalities and egos who can't take criticism and who dish it out but can't really take it back. Whether it be from online criticism or getting heckled by fans in the crowd, there have been many a moment where wrestlers have found themselves getting quite butthurt in these moments. So today we're going to go over a few instances that I could think of when wrestlers got butthurt by critics, fans and hecklers alike. So like the video, as the first man to discuss in this video is none other than Seth Rollins and the rampage he went on social media in 2019. Yeah, 2019 was a very turbulent year for WWE. The product was at its worst that it had been in a very long time, and with AEW launching that year, they were kind of getting blown out of the water in terms of quality on the product. And then you had Seth Rollins, their world champion and top babyface, who seemingly was getting into controversy on social media every damn week. During this time period, it felt like Seth Rollins was just always tweeting and always getting into And a very good example of this was his very public beef he had with Will Ospreay on the Twitter timeline, which isn't the official entry on the list here, but I thought it was just worth talking about, as in June of 2019, Seth Rollins would tweet out saying, "Doubling down, best pro wrestling on the planet. See that cruiserweight triple threat? And that's just one night, one match, amongst the many. Find anyone else alive who does what I do as well as I do it as often as I do it. You can't. WWE Stomping Grounds, Universal Champion." He's waving the WWE flag very hard here, as Will Ospreay would respond saying, "I'm alive." This is when Ospreay was in New Japan, of course, long before AEW, of course, as Will Ospreay is mentioning that he's alive in response to Seth Rollins saying, "Find anyone else alive who does what he does." To which Rollins then responded, "I'm sorry, little guy, we already have a better version of you here, and he just won his first US title. Congrats, King Ricochet. Keep working hard though, buddy." How funny and ironic that Ricochet is the one that was mentioned here. Of course, he is now in AEW as well. Will Ospreay would then respond saying, "Fact of the day, Will Ospreay wrestled more matches in 2019 than WWE Rollins. Catch up, little guy," bantering Seth Rollins back. Of course, I think Rollins said about who does this as often as I do it, so Will Ospreay saying here that he works more. To which Seth then responds to, in an all-timer tweet, "I mean, if you want to talk numbers, we can compare bank accounts too. P.S. That's counting a month off with a broken back, buddy." Oh my word, an all-timer tweet from Seth here. His head is so clearly gone by this point, and he obviously got a whole lot of backlash for this tweet here. He of course did apologize to Will Ospreay in the end, and they did make amends. Listen, this is nothing to criticize Seth for. This is a hilarious exchange, and this tweet is all-timer. There were plenty of other things to criticize Seth Rollins for around this time, and one of them was his match with Bray Wyatt at Hell in a Cell that year, which was widely regarded as one of the worst WWE matches ever, as fans and critics would of course let Seth Rollins know that, and Seth Rollins seemingly didn't take too kindly to the criticism that was levied towards his disastrous match at Hell in a Cell. If you somehow don't remember Seth Rollins and The Fiend's horrible Hell in a Cell match they had in 2019, essentially they went one-on-one at a time where The Fiend was an indestructible character, and it was way too early for him to be challenging for a world title. They booked themselves into a corner, and the match was booked horribly, with The Fiend being presented as indestructible and invincible before the match ended in a no contest. Yes, that's right, a Hell in a Cell match ended in a no contest. It's looked at as probably the worst match of this year in 2019 and one of the worst WWE matches of all time without a doubt. And fans and critics let them know this. People were not happy with how this match went down. A no contest for a Hell in a Cell? Really?
Alright.
He's still the champ.
You may not ask me back for another one of these, but how the hell do you get DQ'd now?
Did he get DQ'd or the refs just stopped the match? I don't know if he got DQ'd.
However, Seth Rollins, like I said, did not take kindly to the criticism that this match received, as he would respond to someone criticizing the finish saying, "Correction, it ended in a ref stoppage. When a body isn't moving, the official has to make the right call." So first he defends the finish, and then when someone quote tweets that tweet with a video of Undertaker and Mankind's infamous Hell in a Cell match, Rollins would then respond with a very baffling response here saying, "I imagine Mick and Taker might have liked the ref to stop the match there. Might have added a few more years to Mick's incredible career, just a thought. And in essence, this isn't really a bad take from Seth Rollins. Yeah, sure, that was obviously an unsafe spot and Mick Foley's career could have lasted longer, but using this match and using this moment to defend your horrible match and horrible finish that you had is just not it, bro. And whilst I can laugh at the Seth Rollins and Will Ospreay beef that took place during this year, this is one of those Seth Rollins tweets that has forever baffled me. And he's running on this whole the match finish was actually a ref stoppage or whatever, but either way, in kayfabe, I don't think a Hell in a Cell match should finish that way anyway, so the entire argument is just invalid. Yeah, sure, a ref stoppage ending that match early probably could have extended Mick Foley's career from that bump he took, but also, this is a completely hypothetical situation that has been made up to defend a horrible match, so no. Yeah, something was in the air in 2019, clearly, because as well as Seth Rollins' social media rampages, there was some weird stuff going down with Ring of Honor at this time, more specifically, Bully Ray, who worked as a backroom member of Ring of Honor at that time. As Ring of Honor was facing trials and tribulations themselves that year, they lost all their talent to WWE and the newly formed AEW, they had that disastrous MSG show, lost their partnership with New Japan Pro Wrestling, and had Bully Ray at the helm of it all. And in June of 2019, a Twitter thread was posted that exposed Ring of Honor and Bully Ray, where allegedly Bully Ray bought a fan backstage as he didn't appreciate their chants and heckling, in a mad story that really personified what was so wrong with Ring of Honor at this time. Okay, story time. I avoided saying anything until the show was over to avoid any further issue, but this honestly soured my Ring of Honor experience in a big way. Honest to God story that can be backed up by about half a dozen people. Show starts, dark match is some local girls fighting, Allure interferes at the end, Velvet and I exchange words along with the rest of the Allure. Nothing crazy, Mandy Leon spits on me from the side, not preferable but I honestly don't care. Segment ends. Side note, I love and respect like 99% of all wrestlers. I honest to God never tried to make the show about me, get myself over etc. My rule of thumb is to boo the bad guys and cheer the good guys. It's rare that I'll flip the script, but I always decide to go along with the show. Some opening match happens, wildly unimportant. Second match occurs and it's a local v local. Allure interferes at the end. I'm mouthing off to all the girls for no reason other than they're the bad guys. Boo, you're trash, get lost, no one wants you here, etc. At some point, Velvet Sky seemingly loses her cool and is challenging me to come in the ring. Tells me to suck it, calls me a pussy, etc. No problem, get your heat. She calls me a virgin. I remind her she has sex with that fat turd Bully Ray. Call him a tramp stamp trio. End of segment. She goes to the back, fast forward about 5 minutes and I get a tap on the shoulder. Hey, we're with security and need to talk to you about an incident that occurred. Immediately, I think of the Allure stuff, but think that maybe Mandy got in trouble for spitting / face palming me. Then I kinda think this is a joke and look around. No signs of a joke from my buddies or crew. I'm super perplexed and think there's maybe miscommunication because nothing so far was a big deal at all. I oblige and follow security. Security takes me legit backstage. I'm still perplexed by the entire thing and was honestly very hesitant to follow them because they kept saying we need to talk to you about an incident. No details behind, just leading me into the back. What's happening? What's waiting for me? Get to the back and security is just asking me to be patient. What's going on? Just sit tight. But what's up? Hold tight. Time was slowing down, but this was all happening so fast. Suddenly, Bully Ray comes out from a back room, full on gear since he was in the opening segment of the show, and he looks pissed. Much bigger than me, so I'm kinda taking a step back on this here. Security backs off, and it's just us two. He said, hey, I heard there was an incident tonight with you and some of the girls. Yeah, I guess. I'm so lost. So here's the deal. You're done talking down to them. You need to treat them with respect. Don't be saying anything you wouldn't say to your mom. You got it? I wasn't trying to act tough. I was legit being intimidated with purpose and I wasn't about to get kicked out during match 3, so I just bit the bullet and said, sure, yes sir, yeah, I understand, yup. He said, end of convo, go be a fan. Security led me back to my seat. That's the end in regards to a timeline of events. The whole thing is still completely unbelievable and surreal, honestly. I've gone to live events for 15 years and been following wrestling for 22 years, never once heard of something like this happening. The Ring of Honor would release a statement in response to this fan statement that he posted, saying that they were doing an investigation of their own and they would determine the appropriate actions. Of course, nothing ended up happening with Bully Ray, and Bully Ray would release his own statement that reads, "And now the truth. I could not have been nicer to said fan. Yes, nice, hard to believe. I never threatened, intimidated, or berated said fan. I handled the situation the exact opposite way most would assume, with decorum." He claims that the fan crossed the line with multiple talent, both men and women, and that the fan deserved to have been ejected. That fan holds true, he was just participating in the show and chanting at the heels. Either way, I don't think the correct course of action for a heckler in the crowd is to bring them backstage and to give them a motivational speech or berate them or whatever the true story was. And speaking of true stories, someone who doesn't have a lot of those is Dave Meltzer and the Wrestling Observer. Okay, that was a bit of a low blow, I do apologize for that one. But we've been talking about Uncle Dave and the Wrestling Observer on the channel recently and some of the controversies they have found themselves in. But Dave isn't the only one at the Wrestling Observer who finds himself getting into controversy, as alongside Dave Meltzer, who presents the Wrestling Observer, is Bryan Alvarez, who you might know from himself and Vinny's TNA reviews. I for sure used to watch a lot of those back in the day. And around the Royal Rumble season of 2020, Bryan Alvarez alongside two other Wrestling Observer hosts would find themselves in trouble with other WWE wrestlers due to their commentary on that year's Royal Rumble that had just taken place.
It comes down to what appears to be a Final Four of Shayna Baszler, Naomi, Beth Phoenix, and Natalya.
You haven't talked about how Naomi went outside and just walked back and forth on the table
Tell us
for
about
a while.
That's what you're here for, Mark.
What happened? What the hell do you think you're here for?
It's been a while. I don't really remember exactly how she got out there. Well,
I'll tell you how.
She jumped out and climbed.
She was on the apron.
Wall. She gripped the wall like a koala bear gripping the.
She was on the apron, and I guess somebody whipped her or threw her
something.
But
and she ran down the steps.
She runs along the apron, runs down the steps, and jumps over onto the wall.
Yeah,
it was ridiculous.
It didn't make a lot of sense.
It was athletically cool, but it was completely ridiculous.
And then she finally wormed her way around to the announce tables and just kept walking back and forth on them. And she would look at, she's on the one and it's close to the steps and she's like, maybe I can jump there. Duh, motherfucker, you already did last year. And then she walks to the next one and it's further away and she's like, maybe this is a better idea. It's definitely not. It's definitely not a better idea.
And then I'm thinking, why don't you take that thing off the front of the table so you can stand on the edge and then you can easily jump.
You can just walk. You can just walk over.
She doesn't figure it out, and finally she takes it up, but then she thinks, I'll make a ramp.
It's
like, what the fuck are you making a ramp for? Just jump. The distance from the stairs to the barricade was much bigger than the distance from the table to the stairs.
And the entire situation is she could have ran down the steps and then just hopped on one foot.
That's also true.
She could have just hopped on one foot.
You're right. Absolutely.
And then just jumped back into the fucking ring.
That is also true.
Sheer idiocy.
Naomi would be the first to respond to this, saying, to whoever these guys are, you just don't have to like me or what I do, but to be called a MF and idiot is just disrespectful and mean. I don't think she's wrong here. And then Carmella would chime in saying, LMAO at these poor pathetic souls. I love when people criticize something they've never done and then go on to explain how you should have done it. Okay, so I've never worked for NASA, but I'm gonna tell astronauts how to get to outer space. And now this one, I don't really agree with. Listen, I liked Carmella in WWE, but I have never been a fan of this argument that you can only criticize something if you do it. So you're not allowed to criticize food that you've eaten if you're not a chef? Are you allowed to criticize movies if you're not a filmmaker? What is the double standard here? And the reason I bring this all up is because this caused one of the weirdest and most insane wrestling discourses I've ever seen on Twitter. What were these people even talking about when the argument was, who was a better wrestler, Carmella or Bryan Alvarez himself? Yes, but that was an argument and a discourse that was going down on social media at that time. If you don't know, Bryan Alvarez of the Wrestling Observer does actually have in-ring experience, you can see from these videos on screen here. And yeah, due to Carmella's response at Bryan Alvarez, people genuinely started arguing that, oh well, Bryan Alvarez is a better wrestler than you, so he can critique you. Which, listen, I disagree with Carmella about the whole you can't criticize something if you don't do it, but is Bryan Alvarez better than Carmella? And Uncle Dave himself would chime in on this conversation saying, the funny part of this incarnation of the story is that one of the people being referred to as never stepping in the ring is both far better technically and far more experienced than the person criticizing them for never stepping in the ring. It's quite hilarious. Nothing beats a Sunday night like arguing who's a better wrestler between Bryan Alvarez and Carmella. I mean, I truly couldn't think of a more pointless discussion to partake in than that one. But keeping on the topic of Dave Meltzer, it is no secret that Dave is one of the most hated journalists amongst actual wrestlers and people within the wrestling industry. There are obviously people who I think have legitimate reasons to have problems with Dave, but there are also a few wrestlers who do have a bit of Meltzer derangement syndrome, if I do say so myself, and get kind of irrationally mad and gotten to over Dave Meltzer, and in particular his star rating system, which has always been a divisive thing amongst the wrestling scene. And one of the weirdest responses and digs I've seen a wrestler try to take at Meltzer was Mickie James during the WrestleCon shows that took place this year during WrestleMania week. As if you aren't aware, during WrestleMania week there are so many shows that go on in the area. There's WrestleCon, which is a wrestling convention in itself and also has a big super show on it. And on this card, Mickie James was taking on Maki Ito, and this ended up being one of the worst matches of the entire weekend and maybe of the entire year. They come out, they get to work, and very quickly Mickie James gets gassed out and then stops mid-match to grab a mic and start cutting a promo as she says the following.
And we got a lot of guys and gals in the back, Maki, who are out here trying to get their 5-star notice. But I'll tell you what, Meltzer ain't never put me over, honey, and he ain't gonna do it tonight either, because I tell you what I do. I entertain. So I know you guys are gonna see a lot of wrestling this week.
Following that, the match turns into a sing-off and it's just an absolutely awful contest, somehow not the worst of the night somehow, as I will be discussing this entire show in its entirety at some point to discuss just how bad it all is. Stay tuned for that. But up until this point, Dave Meltzer had said nothing about Mickie James, so I just don't understand the thought process of stopping a match midway through to randomly just go on a tangent about this wrestling journalist. Who cares? And in Dave Meltzer's Observer review of the match, he would write, Mickie James beat Maki Ito. The story was James blew up fast and then for whatever reason stops the match to cut an anti-Dave Meltzer promo. I wasn't even there, but ironically arrived about 2 minutes after. She said something about never getting a 5-star match and the crowd chanted negative things about me. She was still talking, then both sang, then they went back to wrestling. The match was brutally bad. It was said that it would have been the worst match anyone had seen this year, except the next match happened, which like I said, we'll talk about this full show in the future for sure. But yeah, if you ever want to kill a wrestling match and make sure that not just Dave Meltzer rates it 0 stars, but also everyone in the building and every fan watching it on their screens rates it 0 stars, then do whatever the hell Mickie James did here. It was awkward and uncomfortable, and throughout the entire time, it didn't seem like Maki Ito knew what she was gonna say, nor did Mickie James know what she was gonna say, and she was just kind of making it up as she went along. But yeah, way to kill a match 101. But yeah, that's all I can think of that I've got time here for today. There are definitely so many examples that I am not thinking of here, so go ahead and leave them down below in the comments and maybe I'll make a future sequel to this video. And like this video if you did enjoy it, and subscribe with notifications on so you never miss a video on the Top 10 Wrestling channel. I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye and keep on rolling.